Yeah, guys, it's very, very important to understand the stand-up aspect of fighting and combat. Every situation you get into will always start from the stand-up. So that's one of the main things I always focus on. These stand-up parts of jiu-jitsu are just as important as the ground techniques. If you can't take your opponent to the ground, then you can't implement your jiu-jitsu. Okay, so just the idea, the concept of knowing how to close the distance and clinch safely is very, very important so that you don't take a hit, because one hit, one punch, maybe it doesn't knock you out, but it can change the whole fight. If you get hit in the nose, if you get hit in the jaw, maybe you're dizzy. You get hit in the nose, you break your nose, it makes it hard to breathe. So understanding how to close the distance, how to control the distance so you're safe when you're in danger and when you're out of danger, and how to close is really, really important. Now, once you close the distance, you have to understand how to take your opponent down to the ground. So that's what we're going to start off with, is just a very, very simple takedown. And the takedown we're going to go for is just from a regular clinch. So if me and Sean are pummeled in, normally guys are always trying to pummel in and get two hands inside. Now if I get double underhooks, I have a lot of control of his posture, I have a lot of control, so I have the advantage in that situation with double unders. Okay? But a lot of times it's a big struggle. It's a big struggle to get both arms inside. So once I'm here, now what we're going to do is just a very, very simple takedown. Okay? So first thing I want to do is I want to glue his arm to my body. So my hand is going to be here. I'm gluing his elbow to my chest so it's hard for him to pull his arm away. Now what I'm going to do is my hand comes underneath, and I'm just going to put my hand here blocking his knee. Okay? So even if he's got control of my hand here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn my thumb down so it bends. Right? So I'm going to turn my thumb down, and I'm just going to put my hand here on the outside of his knee. Now I'm going to take a big step back with my rear leg, and keeping everything connected, all I'm going to do is make him fall. Okay? So I'm basically, it's like a trick with the hand. So I can do it this side. What you're going to see is my hand comes underneath, it comes here, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to block the outside of his knee. I'm keeping all of my weight on his leg. So basically what I'm doing is I'm kind of leaning on his leg, so it makes it hard for him to step back. If I don't put weight on his leg, he can step his leg back, right? Step your leg back, good. And then I can go for some other throws because he's off balance, he's leaning forward. But the idea is I want him to plant his foot. So already I'm kind of putting my weight, I'm kind of bending my knees and putting all my weight on his leg. So now pull your leg off. Hard, right? Yeah. So it's a very, very simple trick, very easy takedown. And this, you don't need the gi for this. Most of the jiu-jitsu that I do doesn't require the gi, works gi and no gi. And that's the concept of jiu-jitsu. It has to be effective for a real life situation, right? So just from this side, one more time, I'm here. I'm gonna bring my hand underneath, and now I'm just gonna put my hand on the outside of his knee. Okay? I want to step back with this leg, and what I'm doing is, as I step, I'm gonna open my chest. So I'm gonna open my body. Okay? So as I step back, I'm gonna open my chest, and here on the ground. Usually I will go to knee on belly. Okay? So one more time. So we're clinch, hand comes inside, I'm going to block the knee. Step back with my leg, I'm keeping his arm glued tight to my chest, and as I step, I'm going to go here. Now, you see from this situation, I keep his arm under control. So I already have a good grip on his arm. From here, it's very, very easy to finish. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go for an arm lock. Once I end up with the knee on the belly, my hand is going to go here, brace his shoulder, and my second hand comes inside to grab my wrist. Once I have this, I want to make sure my arm is just below his elbow. So when I come in with my arm slides in just below his elbow. I want to keep my wrist tight. Now all I'm going to do is I start to curl my wrist, so there's very, very little movement needed to break this arm. As long as I'm keeping everything tight, tiny little movement, and his arm is already breaking. Let's do this side. So I'm here. I block his knee. I'm going to step back, make him fall. Knee goes on the belly, and my head is up. I want to make sure that my head is up so that he can't hit me. Right? Now what I'm going to do is my hand goes just underneath his shoulder. I want to kind of turn his shoulder to keep him from turning his hand in. So a lot of times what happens is, if he can turn his thumb down, turn your thumb down, I'm not going to have the arm lock. So what I do is I push up on his shoulder, and as my hand comes in, I turn my wrist. Even if his arm is turned, what will happen is it turns his arm out. So now I have a perfect angle. Keep my head up, I curl my wrist a little bit, so you can see I'm barely even moving, and he's already tapping. And if I need extra, I can put my hip in, okay? So I'll do it one more time from here. So I'm already here, knee on the belly, hand comes in by the shoulder, and then my second hand comes inside and grabs my wrist, okay? I want to keep my head up so I can't get hit, and now I'm just going to curl my wrist. So there's a lot of little details in all of these techniques that make it very, very effective. Just the curling of the wrist will tighten everything up to make it so that you don't need to put a lot of pressure. You don't have to use a lot of strength. And that's the real beauty of jiu-jitsu, is all these little details that are hidden or that you can't really see, that really have to be pointed out to you, that make jiu-jitsu magical. Lay down again, please. So, one of the little things here about this arm lock, when I go for it, is how I get him to turn his arm in the right place. What I want to do is I'm just going to push up on his shoulder. What you see pushing up on his shoulder kind of turns his elbow in the right direction. And when my hand comes in, what I do is I turn my thumb. So this prevents him from being able to turn his arm out. Because a lot of times you go for this, turn your arm out.
No.
There. Yeah, now you can turn it. But once I go here, there's no way to turn it. So what these little things do is, one, it reduces the amount of strength that you have to use for the technique, and also it makes it very difficult for him to defend or counter the technique once you start to apply it. And those things are all very important, because when you go for something, you don't want to waste your energy going for something and then losing it, right? Here, if he turns his arm out, now it becomes a struggle again. Now I have to maybe mount or do another 5-10 steps before I can finish, instead of just finishing it from here. Okay? So that's one of my favorite takedowns. It's a very, very easy one. And the thing is, from one arm, each of us have one arm in. There's a lot of different setups for that. So yeah, that's one of my favorite takedowns. Now what we're going to do is we're going to play with some stuff from the guard, the closed guard. The reason I picked kind of the closed guard today is because that's the position that really made jiu-jitsu famous. Once you get in a fight, once the fight gets to the ground, pretty much any time you end up on the bottom, you're losing the fight. So if I'm on the bottom and the guy's mounted on me, I'm losing. He has the ability to do damage, and I'm basically on defense, right? If I end up on the bottom of cross-side and he's on top, I'm susceptible to getting submitted and also probably be taking a lot of damage in a real fight, right? And he's not exposed to any danger at all. But the guard is the one position in jiu-jitsu where, if you know what you're doing, if you're on the bottom, you can still win the fight, right? And that's what happens with most little people. Little guy ends up fighting a big guy. Where do they end up? Usually on the bottom. Okay, so this is kind of the position that made jiu-jitsu famous. So we're going to go over some of my favorite techniques from the closed guard, from the guard being on the bottom. Okay, so let's do this. First one we're going to go over, the first is just a very, very simple sweep. Everything that I do is very, very basic. It's very, very simple. It doesn't require a lot of movements, like 10 steps to do. And that's really important, because if something is broken down into 10 steps, if it takes you 10 steps to do anything, if the guy counters, or if he moves, or if he does something during those steps, it basically kills whatever movement you do. So everything I do is very, very basic, very, very simple, but there's a lot of little details that make everything effective. So the first thing we're going to go for is, you know, the knee behind the butt to break the legs. So before Sean can start to pass my guard, what he has to do is he has to open my legs. He has to break the guard, okay? And once he breaks the guard, so go ahead and break the guard. So the legs open. Now he has the ability to start to pass. Now my legs are open. He can move around. Before he opens my legs, there's no chance for him to pass, right? So one of the options that he has to open is to wedge a knee behind my butt. And most of you guys that have done jiu-jitsu have probably seen this in the first few weeks of training. Knee behind the butt, puts his other leg up, starts to put leverage to open the legs. Okay? So what I want to do is, anytime you guys tries to put a knee behind my butt, I never want to allow him to create leverage on me. Okay? So the first time he tries to go put his knee behind my butt, as he goes, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move my hip back in. So if he goes to try to put leverage on my butt and go, try to break my legs, I just move my hip. All I'm doing is a little hip movement, okay, to basically stop him from creating leverage. So every time he tries to turn to the side and get my knee behind my butt, I just move my hip. All I'm doing is lifting my butt off the ground and moving my hip to the side, okay? So one more time, he goes to try to put his knee behind my butt. I just move my hip so that he can't put his knee behind my butt and create leverage to open my legs. Now, once he tries to do it again, now what I'm going to do is, instead of moving it back to the inside, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my hip to the outside, okay? Keep control of his sleeve with my opposite hand, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my hand on the ground. So I can control either his sleeve or I can control his wrist somehow, but from here, try to get back up. I have all the advantage in being able to, as long as I can keep his hand under control and he can't base out, now all I'm going to do is engage my hip, okay? The reason I like this sweep so much is because you can do this sweep without having to open your legs. A lot of times, guys will go for sweeps, and they go for maybe a scissor sweep or whatever. Well, what happens is now your legs are open. And if you miss the sweep, what happens is now it gives your opponent the opportunity to try to pass, okay? So with this sweep, I don't risk anything. With this sweep, I don't have to open my legs. I don't have to give him that first step that he needs to be able to pass my guard, right? So there's a lot of strategy, a lot of philosophy, and a lot of concept in all these techniques that we're doing. But the idea is, from here, it's just hip movement, and I don't have to risk anything by just moving my hip in. He tries to go again. Move my hip in, so I don't give him what he wants. And now when he tries to really put his knee in deep, now what I'm going to do is move my hip to the outside. Okay? I want to keep control of his hand with the opposite hand. So that way he can't base out, because try to get up. Now I'm just going to put my hand on the ground. So if he doesn't have this hand, there's no way he can base. And if I don't have the sleeve, I can control his wrist or control it here just by pushing into him. Right? If I push my hand into him, he doesn't have any strength. Push his hand in, right? Yeah. And now all I'm going to do is lift my hip to come on top to the mount. Okay? Good. So a lot of how I teach is I like to talk a lot about the theory and the concepts and the philosophies of jiu-jitsu. And for you guys as students, it's very, very important for you guys to understand all these theories and concepts. It gives you a much better understanding of the art itself. The closed guard is actually a very, very powerful position. And the reason it's such a powerful position is because basically I have someone in between my legs. Instead of having a bear hug with my arms, it's a bear hug with my legs. And I have so much control of my opponent's posture and his balance from the closed guard. There's a lot of movements from the closed guard that I do that you can't really see, that you don't really, if you're watching, you won't really see, but make a huge difference in how my opponent reacts. So the next thing we're going to go for is a very, very simple arm lock from the guard. And everyone says, oh, arm lock from the guard, it's so difficult to do. I always get stacked, I always get smashed when I go for an arm lock from the guard. And that's because there's a lot of elements that people are missing, a lot of little details. I'm going to try to cover a lot of those details today and show you all the things that your opponent can do to counter or stop it, and how just little adjustments will change all those things. We'll make it so that the arm lock works now. So we're going to go here. So how most people teach the arm lock, how it's mostly shown is it's like a 4 or 5 step process. Normally, if I see someone teach the arm lock, they do a cross grip, put one foot on the hip, keeping the knee tight. This leg goes over. Sometimes they use the hand to block the face, and then the other leg comes over, and then you have the arm lock, right? So it's basically 1, 2,
3, 4, and then you have the arm lock. So that's a lot of steps. And of course, as you get faster, it becomes better. But the problem is, as soon as I grab his arm, he already knows what I'm going to do. And in this position, the guy on top actually has more leverage than me. He has more strength. So if I try to, even with my good arm, if I try to pull his arm across, if he just postures up and pulls, I'm always going to lose the arm. Okay? So I never want to take what I want. I want to make him give me what I want. Okay? So from here, from inside the guard, I'm not going to try to take his arm. If I grab his arm, he's just going to pull his arm out. He already knows, arm lock's coming. The guy's going for my arm. So what I want to do is I want to use my legs. Okay? What I want to do is I want to pull him to me. Once I pull him to me, what happens is he wants to stop from falling. So what he's going to do is he's going to use his hands on the ground. Use his hands on me to stop from falling. So even if I just do this, even if I pull a little bit here, or pull on the back of his head here, he's already putting his hands out. He's already stopping. He doesn't want me to pull him down. He doesn't want me to do what I want. Guys are almost always going to resist once you start to try to break them down or break their posture or pull them down. So once I feel the arms on me, if I feel any weight of his hands on me, what that means is he's giving me the arms. Okay? If I feel him pushing on my chest, if I feel him stretching his arms and trying to keep himself from falling, he's already giving me the arms. So all I'm going to do is just a little head movement. So the two movements that you guys are going to need to develop, which are very, very simple movements to get good at this arm lock, is one is just a little shoulder movement. So I always start off my classes when I do the warm-up, I always start off just taking your shoulders off the ground and being able to move yourself side to side. Okay, this is not only important for the arm lock, but it's important for a lot of other things too, like the head and arm. If I have someone in my guard and they're trying to throw a punch at me, how to move to the side, right? To avoid getting punched and being able to pull them in. So, like for example, if he reaches back to try to punch me with one hand, move to the side, pull him in and set up the head and arm, right? So these are all very little movements, but it's the same thing as slipping a punch. It's the same thing as slipping a punch when you're standing up, right? I always want to move out of the way or change the angle so that he can't hit me. So, of course, the same time I pull too. So if he's committing his weight forward, if he's throwing and if he's putting his weight forward, I'm going to pull him in just to help him out. But so for this arm lock, first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to move my shoulders. Okay. Now, this leg is actually the most important leg for the arm lock. Okay. Everyone thinks it's getting the arm over the head, but actually this leg does almost all the work. Once I move my shoulders, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my legs. This leg, I want to slide up his back and I'm going to bite. So it's very important when this leg comes up, I'm biting across the back. And I want to make sure when I say bite, what I mean is I'm pulling my heel to my butt. Okay? What this does is a couple things. One, it takes him off balance. Okay? But also what it does is it keeps him tight and it prevents him from being able to pull his arm out. So first thing I do is I just move my head a little bit to the side. Just to give me a little bit of an angle. I don't even need to move that much. It's just a tiny little movement to the side. Now, the second movement that I do is just a hip movement. Okay? So I always do this when I warm up. And it's just being able to learn how to move your hip from side to side. Okay? Which, of course, jiu-jitsu is all hip movement, right? So, once I move my head, I only need a tiny little movement. Now what happens is this leg, as this leg slides up his back and bites across, my other leg is already coming around. Okay? So, all I have to do is pull him in a little bit and feel maybe he's pushing off me. Now here. So this leg bites down, and the same time that this leg comes over. As long as I'm keeping my knees, my heels tight, pull your arm out, Sean.
No.
Just try. No, it's very difficult for him to pull his arm out if I'm keeping this bite, if I'm tight with my bite. If my legs are not tight, if I'm loose here, pull your arm out. He can pull his elbow out. But as long as my heels are tight, without even breaking his posture, without taking a bounce, try to pull your arm out. Yeah, pull your arm.
Nope.
So that's without even using my hand. So once I go for the arm lock, this leg, what it also does is it stretches him away a little bit. Okay? So what I want is I want him to be light on his knee. So once I lock the arm lock, now stack me, Sean.
No.
So the problem with everyone getting stacked all the time is people go for the arm lock and they do this.
And of course, if the guy's big and strong, he's going to stack you. And from here, of course, I have options to get out of it. I can roll underneath. I can maybe switch out and go underneath and roll over my shoulder and finish the arm lock.
But it becomes very difficult. And the other thing too is if punching is involved, I'm going to take a lot of damage. The guy can drop a knee on my face. He can hit me. So I never want to allow the bigger opponent to put weight on me, to be able to put his weight on me. So when I go for the arm move, this leg comes. What I do is I stretch him away a little bit. I keep him away because now, put your weight on me. What I have to do is I have to keep my hip locked. So I do not allow him to break my knee this way. If he breaks my knee, of course, I could try to grab the leg and try to go for a sweep. That problem is if I try to take my leg off the head and go for the sweep, he can sometimes pull his arm out or he can posture up. Then I have to switch and go for something else, which is a waste of energy. I have to waste more of my energy to kind of catch him, to get him. So we want everything we do, when you do something, you want it to work. So, move my head here. And basically, if I hold on to his arm, the reason I'm letting go of his arm is because the arm lock is so tight that if I hold on to his arm will break by the time I have my leg around his head. So I'll just hold on to it real quick. But it's already, before I already put it on, it's already so tight. If I clamp down with my second leg on his arm's already broken. So, and that all has to do with the tightness of the legs. So I move my head. You see, I haven't even put this one down. Once I bite with this one, and so that movement will develop, of course, as you practice it. But the key is keeping your legs. The arm lock is all based on the legs. Your legs, what you have to think about is your legs, they say, are 7 to 10 times stronger than your arms. So if you're not using your legs, you're basically being inefficient. The legs is basically what controls the arm lock. The hand is just there to glue it to your body so that you can break it. But the legs and the hip and the body does all the work. So that's an arm lock, and I think a few people have seen it done this way, and it's kind of the word is starting to get out kind of how it's done. But those are a lot of little details that really make that arm lock effective. The next thing we're going to go for is a triangle. And everyone's seen the triangle choke. Everyone knows how to kind of do the triangle choke. But how to put pressure and how to really apply it, I haven't seen many people teach. I haven't really seen people explain how to properly make the triangle tight, how to close it up, okay? So what you guys are going to see is the triangle. When I have someone in a triangle, this is the hole where I have the person. That's the space, okay? The idea for the triangle is I want to close everything up. I want to make that tight. So the idea is I want to start to bite down and I'm going to start to squeeze my knees together, okay? A lot of people say, oh, you got to pull down on the head or you got to lift your hips up. I don't actually like lifting my hips up in the triangle and pulling the head down because one, if he's able to push my elbow off his head and I'm lifting my hips, it helps him get posture. And that's one of the ways he can escape. If I'm lifting my hips, if he's able to get his head up and get posture, I just lost my triangle, okay? So I don't ever kind of lift my hips during the triangle. I don't try to pull the head down and lift my hips. If you do it properly, you can actually finish the triangle without even your hands, okay? And even with his defense. So the idea for the triangle, and I'll show you guys a transition from the arm lock to the triangle, but once I get the triangle, the idea is all I'm going to do is I just start to squeeze my knees together. And what I want to do is I want to bring him to me. So without even my hands, all I'm doing is pinching my knees together and I kind of curl myself up into a ball. I kind of bring my knees in towards me, okay, to basically finish. Now, a lot of people think you need this arm across. Even with his arm, wrap your arm around my leg. So what you see is a lot of people defend the triangle like this. Put the arm around, oh, you're never going to get me now because my arm is on the other side. And then you see guys having to do this to try to pull the arm over, and if I lift my hip up, get your posture.
he's already defended my, so as soon as I lift my hip up, it allows him the opportunity to defend.
So once I have the triangle here, if I know how to squeeze my knees, he's gonna tap. So it's not even any strength. I don't even need to put any strength into it, and I don't need to pull his head. All I'm doing is pinching my knees together, right? So let's show, I'll just go over a little transition. He can't really pull his arm out. But let's say I mess up a little bit and he's able to pull his arm out. So now what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to use this leg, and the key is I want to bite across his neck, okay? A lot of times what you have to do is you have to adjust your angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch this leg as I bite across. Now I have a good angle to finish the triangle. From here, all I'm going to do is I just squeeze my knees together. Even if he's got his arm on this side of my body, if I just squeeze my knees a little bit together, it's going to finish, because as you guys see, once I start to pinch my knees together, this hole disappears. Now there's nothing left, right? So that's the concept for finishing the triangle, is just being able to squeeze your knees. And like I said, the legs are so powerful, the legs are so strong, it's very difficult for the guy to resist, even with arms, to resist that movement, because of course the legs are so much stronger than the arms. So just tiny little details of very, very basic techniques, but a lot of people make these techniques so complicated, so complex, like, oh, you got to do this step, and then this step, and this step, and this step to get it to work. And the problem is, if you mess up between any of those steps, you lose whatever you were going for. So that's really the key and the secret to jiu-jitsu, is mastering all the little details. I always tell people the journey from the white belt to the black belt is basically perfecting the basics. Learning all these little hidden details, these little things that make everything work when you go for them, and to make it so that you don't have to use strength, that you don't have to use power, and that they work against anyone, whether the guy's bigger than you or smaller than you, stronger than you or not, that when you go for something, it works. So thank you guys. I want to thank you guys all for participating in the event, and especially thank you everyone that donated to the charity. It's for a great cause. After the charity, we're going to post exactly how much money we were able to raise and what charity it went to. So I also want to thank Sean for hosting it at Hollywood Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and everybody that participated. Of course, we had an amazing lineup of black belts that came out and donated their time to come help. And it was hopefully we had a very, very successful event. Hopefully everyone enjoyed it and learned a lot from it.
Thanks very much, everybody. Now, before we close up, I'd like to introduce the guy that started one of the biggest brick and mortar retail shops and online martial arts, MMA equipment stores in America, probably the globe. It's called On the Mat, and it was originally just a website and a forum and an information site. But Scotty Nelson, come on up. Scotty's he's been behind the scenes. He's been doing the Facebook Q&A. He's also the guy from On the Mat. So onthemat.com, and what's all the gear and stuff?
Onthemat.com, otmfightshops.com, myluckygi.com. Again, thanks to everybody who donated today. Thanks to all the black belts, everyone that came out and spent their time. If you made a donation today, we're going to be sending you an email with a link where you can download the highlights to this event. I also want to say thanks to my roommate, John Salami. He's been behind the camera. John, come out here for a second. He's a black belt. He was going to show some techniques today. And he got stuck doing work just like the rest of us. So thank you guys all very much. And look for some more great stuff coming from Henry and everybody else soon.
Now, before we close up, guys, one final thing. I started a company called Christmas 14. We're going to sell merchandise. This will be one of the t-shirts. This will be our first t-shirt, and I actually had it produced through Scotty's company. He did the t-shirt for me. But this is it. The proceeds are going to go to sponsor kids all over the country into a martial arts program. So this is an original piece of artwork designed by an artist friend of mine. I'm going to get a new piece of artwork all the time, every other month, and they're going to be limited edition t-shirts. Like, I'm sure some of you guys recognize this image. It's a pretty famous image, time-life image, but we've reconstructed it in a way that's a little thought-provoking, and it's kind of flip the coin a little bit. The whole concept is give life. The whole concept of Christmas 14 is, I don't know if you guys know, but there's a story about it on my blog site. My blog site is shineuntiltomorrow.com, shineuntiltomorrow.com, and this whole story of Christmas 14 is in 1914, World War I. For some magical reason, both sides, the British, the French, the Belgians, and on the other side, the Germans, they all came out of the trenches, and for one glorious day, they all had a soccer game. They exchanged tobacco, chocolate, and whatnot, and played soccer. The next day, under strict orders, they went back to fighting and continued on to the slaughter. But I'd like to harness that one little magical moment that happened in time. So the name of the company is Christmas 14. You can go to christmas14.com. Again, the proceeds are going to go to sponsor kids into a martial arts program throughout the country. I've got participating academies that are all going to do their part. It's a wonderful opportunity. I know what it's done for my life. I know what it's done for Henry's life. I know what it's done for everybody that's involved in jiu-jitsu and martial arts in general. I know that it's made a huge impact on their life, so I'd like to find a way to give back. So this is the first article of merchandise we have, and that's it. Again, Henry Akins, dynamicsmma.com. Anything you'd like to say, brother?
Nope, just great. Honored to share the mat with all you guys. John Lewis was one of my heroes when I first started.
Yeah.
Henry as well. I love these guys, so thank you, sir.
No, thank you very
It
much.
was awesome. Good to run the camera today, but thanks to everybody that gave in and donated, because it was a great cause. So thanks, Henry, for getting this awesome.
And guys, Scotty Nelson from, again, On The Mat and BuiltToFight.com. He's the one that's in charge of the website and everything. So all the proceeds, everybody that donated today is going to go to him. And he's going to cut a big check, and we're going to go to, he'll let you know exactly what we raised and exactly where it's going. But so far, we found a couple of websites on payitforward.com, I believe it is, that are going to the cause, and so it'll be a proud moment for us to write those guys a check. So stay tuned with him, and he'll give you the details. Thanks very much for stopping in. And again, thanks very much to all the black belts that showed up. It was an honor to have them on the mat with us today. And thanks very much, guys. Take care. God bless.